What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast, episode 160. And who knew it would took 160 episodes, 160 episodes before Gene Walzak and Cottrell Simpson finally had the sticks, had a Madden duel. It was a close but epic victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. They did not cover the spread, so if you were betting on Cottrell money line, you lost. If you were betting on Gene minus the 7.5, you lost. However, there was a lot of collusion involved in the game. They had, the Eagles seemingly could have scored at the end of the game, chose not to, sat on the ball, ran it out. Also, Nick Chubb is being investigated for steroids for breaking 7 tackles on one play. However, those steroids cannot fix the fact that he had no hands whatsoever and dropped an easy touchdown. Madden doing their tomfoolery to Cottrell on that play. It was a very good game, though. I got to give Cottrell his credit. Very good Madden player. Didn't expect it to be that close, that good, and he's a stud. So give credit where credit is due. Studs do stud things, and Cottrell Simpson is a stud. So welcome, everybody. We got a lot to get into today. So before we get into anything, let's introduce people. In the upper left corner, we got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cottrell.
So I appreciate, the kind words and, all that. I don't know why you're expecting me to just be some slouch. Definitely was a good game. We'll have to run it back in the very near future here. Had some unfortunate events happen in that game, but we'll take the L on the head. So got to just roll.
You did have some unfortunate events, but you did have a couple things that did go your way. Like we can be fair, Nick Chubb being like cyborg and running through 5 tackles on one 84-yard run. That was incredible.
That did happen. We made up for the wide open drop in the end zone. So
it was bro. At one point, Cottrell's defense was just unpenetrable. But let me welcome back to the right side of it's always on the East Coast, but welcome him back to Pennsylvania, Mr. Torney Ball himself. Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally, Mr. William Shallcross. How you feeling tonight, Bill?
Good. It's good to be back in PA. I'm enjoying the ice cold weather. I didn't enjoy the 85 and sunny in Florida every day. Not at all. Didn't enjoy that at all. Definitely enjoyed playing in 40-degree weather last night. That was fun. So, I'm excited to be back.
I got to be honest. Shally was in rare form last night. We went top of the first inning. That's it. Top of the first inning, we did not hit well. It was like 1, 2, and 3. Like somebody got a hit and then somebody else got out. And Shally was already screaming at the team, "Let's go! We're not losing these guys!" Like scream. But it worked. It worked. 17-1 victory. Wire2Wire improves to 6-1 on the season, holding down that 1 seed with Doc Shally on the bump.
Became very procedural after that, after everybody decided to start playing. So
I was playing in a full Halloween costume.
He was.
No excuses, though. I hit well.
You did.
But we got a lot to get into. We got a lot to get into tonight. We got to start. We got to start with the trade heard around the world. I mean, it's obviously the biggest trade in NBA history. The Philadelphia 76ers traded James Crybaby Harden to the Los Angeles Clippers for a bunch of expiring contracts and a couple first-round draft picks. Now, I know on the surface, this trade is not flashy. I thought Daryl Morey was going to try to get Norman Powell, Terrence Mann. The Clippers held tight to the two, I think the better wings that could have been dealt in this deal. Daryl Morey took what he could get, got the man out of town, and got a couple first-round draft picks, including a first-rounder from the Thunder and a first-rounder from the Los Angeles Clippers. A couple pick swaps in the deal, and then a bunch of 3-and-D wings. I mean, if you be honest with you, we got the PJ Tucker that can shoot with Marcus Morris. So same player. I'm kind of kidding, but I'm just being optimistic. They also brought in Nicholas Batum, who couldn't play 5 when Joel Embiid misses his 15 to 20 games this year, like he always will. He could play a small man's 5 with a rotational 5 versus non-centers, which basically every team in the NBA has a non-center except 5. However, the sentiment about the trade has not been positive for Philadelphia fans, but I'm here to be positive. I'm here to be positive. Now, Cottrell and Shally are going to argue against me, and that's okay. I understand that. But Cottrell, I'll start with you. What were your reactions in the trade? Who won the trade? What do you think about the James Harden trade?
So, I mean, I think on the surface, I think the Clippers won the trade. I think it's pretty clear. I know at the end of the day, Sixers fans wanted James Harden out of Philadelphia, and that just was something that had to happen. But Daryl Morey originally came off on the stance that we're not just going to move him for nothing. And I'm not saying the Sixers got back nothing in return. Like, I do think it's good that they got back some first-round picks and the expiring contracts are good. But at the end of the day, right now, you guys are fully in a championship window. And I didn't think that Daryl Morey did anything to improve those odds of potentially winning a championship this year. Now, with that said, the expiring contracts, I think you guys are going to be in a prime position for next year, especially with those picks. Maybe even come the deadline, you're in a spot to go get a guy on a team that's potentially bad. Maybe like depending on who's available, like a Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan, somebody like that, a star that can come in, be a great, complimentary piece to Maxey and Embiid. But as it stands right now, I just feel like the Sixers didn't do themselves justice to put themselves in a position to win a championship this season.
Bingo. You said it perfectly. I don't think they wait till the offseason, Cottrell, but I'll stop. I think Shally's going to vent a little bit, and I want to let him give his full Florida vent. But I will say this, before you vent, Shally, before you go nuts, before you start spazzing out, I think the trade is not complete yet. I think it's an incomplete. I don't give it a grade, an A through an F. I also don't think the Clippers won the trade. I think that anybody that has that cancerous player in James Harden in their locker room did not win the trade. Okay, just to be clear. You have 2 guys that have the most turnovers that don't have rings as your 2 point guards with Russell Westbrook and James Harden. So that's okay. But I think the trade's an incomplete. I think what Daryl Morey did was he got a bunch of expiring contract and money off the books. So by doing that, you can move expiring contracts to teams that want to compete next year, that are tanking. And you can trade for a younger player or a star player on a bad basketball team around the trade deadline. I think it doesn't even take that long. December, January, right after the in-season tournament, you might say it. You might be able to trade some of those pieces. The Sixers have an abundance of athletic wings at this point. They just added them all. You got Rocco, you got Marcus Morris, KJ Martin, who I love. I love KJ Martin. I think he stays on the team. Guy jumps out of the gym. I think he's going to develop. He's a Nick Nurse guy. He's liked him for years. I think the trade's an incomplete. I'm not upset. The Sixers are better today than they were yesterday. James Harden wasn't going to be playing on this team this year. So all you did was add pieces. You got rid of PJ Tucker's contract. You got rid of James Harden's money. You got a bunch of expiring contracts to move. I think it's a win for the 76ers. Shall I tell me why I'm wrong?
I mean, I agree with some of it. I mean, I agree. I would say I agree across the board. I would agree more with Cottrell. If I had to grade it, though, I would give it an incomplete. I think you think I'm going to say it's an F, and I'm not. And I'm going to say it's an incomplete because I'm going to give Morey the benefit of the doubt that he's going to make a move. If he doesn't, then this becomes, then it becomes a crappy trade. I mean, I think if you're looking strictly on the surface of the talent, then the Clippers won the trade. We got a guy back that everybody wanted to run out of town the first time he was here. Morris is what he is. I think if you're the concerning part for me is this, and Cottrell hit this right on the head. They are in the middle of the championship window. Like, this is now, if we don't make a move and we don't bring an impact player back with the expiring contracts we can get rid of, or other pieces we have to move now, because to your point, we have eight 3-and-D guys. Like, you should be able to package some of them somewhere. The draft picks don't really entice me that much. One's for like 2028, the other one's for 2029. We have one before that. Like that is so far down the road. That's I'm not counting that as a win for Daryl Morey. I think Daryl Morey took the L here. I think he backed himself into the corner. Completely being friends and trusting that that Snake and James Harden. And then when things didn't go his way, force his way out of town like he has 2 other times before. Guy's a scumbag. He is what he is. He's becoming a very quickly over the hill player, and he's a baby. I don't know what to say. I mean, I agree with you in that aspect that I don't know how the Clippers could be, I guess, over the hill excited like they seem to be that they got him. It's only a matter of time before something happens, and then you'll start hearing the rumors already. But I think Morey is. I think he took the L here, and I think he took the L here at his own expense. This wasn't something. I'm not saying you have to bash a trade, but the people that are making excuses for him, I don't want to hear that. This all happened because he got us into bed with James Harden, and to not think that this was, even a possible outcome at the end of this with his past and his history is just really short-sighted for me. So. I think he has ways to get out of it. I think he has the pieces, and hopefully he has the foresight to either make a deadline move or, to your point, I mean, they're going to have $1 gazillion to spend in the offseason. But, you're going to have to extend Maxey eventually, and you realistically have 2 years probably of JoJo's prime left. This is a win-now team. This can't be some BS, give me a 2029 draft pick. Like, that does nothing for us. This team will be in a complete rebuild at that point. Then, it's so that part of it is a little concerning to me. But I'll give it an incomplete, and I will give him the benefit of the doubt and give him the chance to get out of it.
I think Shalley's thinking short-sighted here, and I'll tell you, the 28 first-round draft pick won't be used by the 76ers. That is a bargaining chip that is to be added to a trade. That's what's going to happen. They're not done trading. They have 17 wings on the roster. They're not done trading. They're just they got Harden out of there. They got the cancer out of the building. Now the chemotherapy starts, right? Like, you start to be able to heal. You start to be able to recover. And I think that's great. I'm happy with that. I'm very happy to get him out of the building, to get the distraction out of there. I'm tired of seeing every single day, James Harden's not allowed on the plane, and James Harden's not showing up for practice. I don't care. I want to see Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid play. I want to see Kelly Oubre play. My man Oubre has been balling. Give him credit. Credit where credit's due. Nick Nurse seems pretty good. And listen, Pat Bev's funny, man. I don't know if you guys ever follow Pat Bev's podcast. It is hilarious. He basically all but said, he's like, we should be 3-0. The refs 100% cost us that Milwaukee game with that BS Giannis no travel call when he flipped the ball over the rim and they got a 3-pointer. It was a 6-point swing. I think it's hilarious. I'm not going to lie to you. I love that. I love that the attitude of the team is we're going to go out and win every night. I'm happy with it. I'm happy the direction they're headed. Finally. Get Harden out of here. Get Simmons out of here. Let Maxey become more of a part of the offense. And by the way, Cottrell's pick of Tyrese Maxey being most improved.
That was Bill.
Or sorry, Bill's pick of Tyrese Maxey being most improved. It's looking better and better by the day. I didn't think they could do it. I don't think it was possible because I thought that you'd have to take too big of a jump for him to win most improved.
I will say, though, the one thing that I think a lot of people kind of are forgetting is that James Harden had a, pretty good year last year. Now, it wasn't Houston good, but James Harden put up all-star caliber numbers. And so I think him going to LA, it's not going to necessarily help them, win a championship. Obviously, he doesn't have that kind of pedigree behind him. But I do think for a LA team that, you constantly see Paul George, Kawhi Leonard missing ample games because of injury, I think James Harden is going to be a guy that helps keep them afloat, at least during the regular season. And then come that time, like if you have a, I don't want to say healthy Kawhi because I haven't seen healthy Kawhi in 5 or 6 years. But if you have a Kawhi Leonard with less miles on it and hasn't had to, exert just crazy energy throughout the regular season, I think that could be beneficial for that Clippers team. And I think, it's not so much for me that James Harden moves the needle like that for them to win a championship, but it's more so they have Kawhi and they have PG. And if those guys are healthy, I can't forget about what I saw game 1 last year when Kawhi was playing in the Western Conference playoffs. Like, if Kawhi is healthy and he's playing games, it's a big if. That Clippers team is going to have a chance to do some damage in that Western Conference. And I think bringing in a guy like James Harden is going to help alleviate some of those miles that gets put on, Kawhi and PG's bodies. And that can actually help them stay afloat and win games during the regular season.
I want to at least take a shout out to all the people watching on TikTok. We have 529 likes already. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Smash that like button for us. We appreciate it. By the way, I want to shout out Tiffany Page, Tiffany Hurtado. Appreciate you with the likes. I see them all. You did like 40 of their 529. So I appreciate you. Thank you. But back to what we were talking about. Guys, listen, it's incomplete. We're not going to talk about it too much. We'll see what happens. NBA's getting revved up. We got to move forward. I'm happy where we're at. Happy in the direction. No Ben, no James. There's no players on the 76ers I absolutely hate. I'm happy there. All right, can we talk about somebody I do hate? I need to bring this up. I hate this person. Josh McDaniels was fired yesterday. Into the night. Overnight, back-to-back nights, breaking news. Josh McDaniels has been let go from the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's start there. I want to make something very clear to Raider Nation out there. I don't hate your team. I don't hate your fan base. I hate it what your GM and your head coach were and what that organization did to Rich Bisaccio and Mike Mayock by letting them go after the successful year they had bringing that team to the playoffs. They brought Devontae Adams there. They traded his best friend, Derek Carr. They had a whole situation with John Gruden, whole situation with Henry Ruggs. And what did Rich Bisaccio did? He rallied the troops. He got that team into the playoffs, and he almost beat the AFC champions, Cincinnati Bengals. They were in the red zone down 7 as the game ended. Then they fire him, and then we get Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels was finally fired yesterday. Raider Nation was celebrating throughout the airport. Anywhere they could celebrate, I'm happy for you, Raider Nation. I will now once again start rooting for the Raiders and not rooting against them every single week of the year. Your thoughts on the McDaniels firing, Cottrell?
So for me, I think it's surprisingly, I feel differently than how I thought I would have felt when he got fired. I know we talked about this before on the show, who we thought the first coach would ultimately be. And my answer was Josh McDaniels. I thought Eberflus deserved to be that guy, but I ultimately thought McDaniels would be the first one. I'm almost thinking right now with that Raiders team, I saw the game Monday night against the Lions. I don't know what you wanted Josh McDaniels to do. Devontae Adams was open plenty of times. Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't get him the ball. And I'm not here to throw on the cape for McDaniels because I think I don't think he's a good coach, but firing him at 3-5, like, I don't know what the Raiders were expecting to be at this point in the season with that roster. So
I can answer that.
What do you want him to be?
Immediately, what did they do as soon as Josh McDaniels got fired, Cottrell?
They made the switch quarterback.
They made the switch at quarterback. And what did the organization say the reason was they made the switch at quarterback?
Well, I didn't see the exact reason, but I saw that one Raider source said that Aiden O'Connell was the best quarterback that they had.
Why are we starting Aiden O'Connell? Because he's the best quarterback on the roster. That sounded to me like a shot directly at the coach and GM. They would refuse to start Aiden O'Connell.
My thinking is if that's how Mark Davis felt about the situation and they knew that Aiden was the best quarterback, I don't know if Josh McDaniels, especially coming off of the horrendous job that he did the first time around and knowing that he was already on the hot seat, I feel like Mark Davis would have went to him and said, hey, start Aiden or you're getting fired. I don't see Josh McDaniel being that guy saying, okay, well then just fire me then. Like, I don't see Josh being that guy. So while that makes
No,
sense,
no,
in
Bill,
my mind, like I just don't think that would have happened like that.
I'm going right to shot with this one because I'm going to tell you right now you're wrong. And I love you, Control. You're wrong. This is what happened, right? Mark Davis is like, why weren't you successful? Well, I didn't have a quarterback that ran my system. That's what Josh McDaniels told Mark Davis. I need a quarterback to run my system. They brought in Jimmy G, his old New England buddy that was down in San Francisco. The entire organization, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, you could see them in the post-game pressers. Like, what do you want me to say? I don't want to say something that's going to get misconstrued. And then the Raiders organization was finally like, it's enough, right? Jimmy G's not our guy. He never was. Josh McDaniels wanted to bring him in to run Josh's system. He said Derek Carr was the problem. We got rid of our franchise quarterback for this guy, Josh. And the whole organization celebrated gloriously today when they made that move.
The thing, though, is that I disagree with that because Derek Carr was already going to be on his way out way before Josh McDaniels was the guy for the job. Like, the Raiders had already decided that they wanted to cut ties with Derek Carr. You heard at the end of the season that Derek Carr, was very confused about why they didn't want him there anymore.
Incorrect.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Yeah, he's incorrect. He said before McDaniels got hired, when Derek Carr took that team to the playoffs with Rich Bisaccia, they were bought in on him. You're talking about the first season with Josh McDaniels.
I'm not talking about the first season. I'm talking about last season.
Okay. That was the first season of Josh McDaniels.
I'm saying that had nothing to do with Josh, though. Like, they were going to be out. They were going to be out on Derek Carr regardless.
They weren't out on him before they hired the GM and the coach, Cottrell. They were out on him after the coach is like, it's not me, it's Carr. It's not me, it's this guy. I need my guy in here. That's what happened.
I'm just saying, you're 3-5 right now. What did Mark Davis expect the Raiders' record to be after 8 games with that roster?
With a loss to the Chicago Bears, who have 2 wins this year. So 4-4 would be minimum, right? Shai, what are your thoughts on the McDaniels firing?
It's tricky. It's not cut and dry, and my main question though is kind of like Cottrell's line of thinking. Like, where did you realistically think you were going to be? What were your realistic expectations for this year? And what do you think you're going to change by blowing it up 8 weeks into the season? So my whole point is, if you had unrealistic expectations, but you were 3-5, it's not terrible. It's not great, but with that roster, it's not awful. What do you think you're bringing in, starting Aiden O'Connell now going to another interim coach? Like, does somebody in that front office think there's a magical run in that roster, especially within that division? It's stupid. I mean, and you could point to figure McDaniels if you want. That's fine. But everybody's seen the video of Devontae Adams last night slamming his helmet on the bench and freaking out because Jimmy G can't get him the ball. That's not a coaching situation. He's wide open twice, and Jimmy G couldn't put the ball in his frame anywhere.
Coach was the one that brought him in. That's not a coach situation? They fired the coach and the GM. The coach and the GM destroyed that roster. Hey, Bill, you could say whatever you want to say, and I get it.
Okay, but you're proving my own point. Is this isn't a coaching thing, because they should have kept the guy that you wanted them to keep. They should have kept that quarterback. They should have kept Mike Mayock. Whose call was that?
Mark Davis.
Correct. There's your problem. Mark Davis wants to be his dad so goddamn bad that he just constantly flails and goes after everything. Mark Davis doesn't have the patience to let a team develop. And then we're not even mentioning the goddamn Gruden debacle. So
are you really trying to think that to just say that Mark Davis is the issue, that the reason they hired Josh McDaniels, which I agree with, but
whose final call was it? Not to keep it. What's his face?
But Josh McDaniels was a bad hire. That's a Mark Davis problem. That's fine. I don't disagree with it. But Josh McDaniels is a bad coach. They should have kept Rich Bisaccia.
And whose decisions were all those?
That's Mark Davis's.
Correct. That's the problem.
You shouldn't have fired. So you made a mistake. You should have fired Josh McDaniels. They shouldn't have fired him. Is that what you're coming on here saying?
No, I'm saying they shouldn't have gone down. They shouldn't have been in him from the get-go.
I agree.
You You can't keep compounding the mistake and then
My
not
issue-
putting the blame on the guy who's making the decision.
My issue with it is that they are 8 games into the year, and you talk about the one loss being against one of the losses being against the Bears. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play that game. Jimmy Garoppolo plays that game. Maybe they win. Maybe they are that 4-4.
I mean, it lost 30-12, just to be clear.
Aiden O'Connell was the guy who, took over. Brian Hoyer started the game. Aiden O'Connell took over, and they scored 12 points. So regardless, if you bring in a coach, especially like Josh McDaniels, you knew Rome wasn't going to be built in a day for that Raiders team. There was no way that was going to happen. And you were talking about before the season, the Raiders being in the sweepstakes for Caleb Williams. They're 3-5. They're 3-5 right now.
Why did I say that? I said, don't tell half the story. Why did I say that?
Their roster stinks, and Josh McDaniels
their roster doesn't stink. Their roster doesn't stink. Their roster now, outside of Derek Carr instead of Jimmy G, their roster now is better than the roster it was in the playoffs. They had Devontae Adams. They added Devontae Adams and won 5 games. The reason the roster,
you also have to think about the defense is not the same as what it was.
Bro, they have one of the best defensive players in the league.
They had him then. They don't have Chandler Jones now. Chandler Jones was a monster on that defense. So there's pieces that are missing.
Man, I can't follow. The reason I said that team would be a dumpster fire this year is because they had the worst head coach in football. Do you know what I'm not trying to be a smart ass when I say this. Do you know what his record is as a head coach?
When 8-8 first year, second year in Denver.
It's like 12 and
hold on. It's 20-34. Do you know what his record is after they got caught cheating?
Now that's
14-34. They were 6-0. He started 6-0 at Denver. No one remembers that. Started 6-0, got caught cheating versus San Francisco. He's 14-34 since then. How is this man a head coach?
I don't see. That's the part here where we're on the same side. I never have been a Josh McDaniels fan.
Good.
I said he should have been fired. I'm saying 3-5 shouldn't give you the can in this situation.
I disagree. I think he should have got fired at the end of last year.
Agreed.
I think he sold them on prayer. Like, listen, you get my guy in there, and we're going to be a playoff team, and we're going to be this, and that. He sold them on that. That's why they got Jimmy G in there. And then when they watched what happened, they were just like, well, we're not a playoff team. This team stinks. We're going to get rid of you now. We're not wasting any more times. We're tired of listening to Josh McDaniels nursery rhymes and storybooks and all this BS. I just want to be clear. Their wins are versus the 3-win Broncos, the 3 or 2-win Packers, and the 2-win Patriots. So let's not act like they're beating world beaters being 3-5.
Nobody said they were. They were 3-5.
All right. Well, we got to move on to more NFL action. We got a lot of NFL to talk about. The trade deadline just happened. I'd like to ask you guys a question. What team? All right. So this is a very obvious question, but I think this is a very obvious answer, right? What team benefited the most from this trade deadline? 1, 2, 3.
San Francisco
49ers. All right. There's nobody like Leonard Williams going to Seattle is a great move. I love that move. Kevin Byard coming to Philadelphia. Love that move. I still count that as a trade deadline deal. Happened a week ago. Doesn't matter. Still a trade deadline deal. I think that the 49ers getting Chase Young for the 73rd pick in the draft probably is a joke. Chicago's GM is so inept that they trade the 34th pick for Montez Sweat, and the 49ers were like, we'll give you 77 for Chase Young.
And what makes that even worse is that it came out that the Bears were more interested in Chase Young to begin with. And they got Chase Young is the better player, and they gave up a second for Montez Sweat. And the part that makes it even crazier is that we were just here last year during the trade deadline. If you were a Chicago Bears fan, would you rather have Joey Porter Jr. or Chase Claypool? Like, what are you guys thinking? Like, this is the definition of insanity. Like, I don't get it with them. Talk about somebody needs to be fired. They all need to be let go over there in Chicago because this is dumb.
Completely agree with you. Bill, what team got better at the trade deadline, and why is it not the 49ers?
I mean, it's definitely the 49ers. I mean, they made the biggest splash. I think there's, I agree with you. I think Leonard Williams to Seattle is a very, very solid trade that I think would probably have garnered more headlines if both Young and Sweat weren't traded for later round picks in the same day. I think Ezra Cleveland to Jacksonville is a low key, really solid pickup for Jacksonville to solidify that offensive line. That offense is starting to really click. Travis Etienne's been incredible the last couple of weeks. So getting him even more protection and obviously protecting Lawrence and keeping him more upright and comfortable in the pocket is a huge upgrade for Jacksonville. I think that's a very low key big win for the Jaguars.
I was very confused. So, we all agreed the 49ers won the trade deadline. I was very confused on three things, right? Let me ask you guys this question. Who lost the trade deadline?
Chicago.
Outside of Chicago. No. No, I'm not going to allow that answer.
Okay.
There's somebody that I think lost the trade deadline. I think they lost it clearly. And I will let that be open for discussion. There are two teams that lost the trade deadline, to be clear. Two.
I think, for me, it's teams that – you're talking about teams that made a move or that just
Doesn't
everybody?
Matter. Made a move, didn't make a move.
My initial reaction, I think, would be Kansas City is one team that I'm disappointed in. They clearly have some struggles at the receiver position, and they didn't attempt to make any decisions to make that room any better. I think that was a situation where you've seen that they've lost games this season off of drop passes and things like that. So as the season gets later and later, of course, I know a lot of those guys are young, but I would have made a move to get a vet in that locker room and, give Patrick Mahomes somewhat of a reliable option outside of just Travis Kelce.
I mean, they brought Harmon back. I mean, I don't think it's obviously not a splash move, but I don't know if there's anybody really, any high-end person out there like that was probably available.
It's Donovan Peoples-Jones.
That would have been a great pickup for Kansas City.
I think that would have been a perfect pickup for Kansas City. But let me tell you, Detroit and Dallas, both sitting on their hands. Detroit getting DPJ made no friggin' sense to me. And I'll break down why it makes no sense. Hold on. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Craig Reynolds has been very good for them.
It's been okay.
You have Jamison Williams, who you invested first-round capital in.
He can't catch right now.
I know.
He can't catch, and he's been in trouble twice. I mean, he's not exactly the guy.
What they needed was an edge rusher or a safety to play opposite of Brian Branch. They literally lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson for the year due to an injury, and they have Aiden Hutchinson rushing. He's getting double-teamed every friggin' play because they have nobody on the other side that can get after the quarterback. Detroit and Dallas sat on their hands. You want to talk about a team that's got the third best Super Bowl odds out of the NFC behind Philadelphia and San Fran, not Detroit, Dallas, sat on their hands and did nothing this trade deadline. All these teams getting better, and Dallas just sat back and did nothing. I love pouring salt on the wound, pouring gasoline on the fire when it comes to the Dallas, especially Dallas week, especially Cowboys week. No, Detroit and Dallas didn't lose the trade deadline.
I agree with you with the Lions in their secondary. I would like to see them get another DB. I do think that the edge can be, like, their D-line can be solidified. James Houston is going to be coming back, sometime this season. They're thinking most likely in December. And he was a great piece for them last year. Now, I know you don't want to wait, for that kind of production, but I mean, they've been finding ways to win with what they have right now. I'm always of the mindset, if you're good, you want to go out there and try to get better. You saw that's what the 49ers did. They got Randy Gregory a couple weeks ago, and they said, hey, we want even more, and we go get Chase Young. So I think they could have made a move. I would like them to make a move in the secondary. For the Cowboys, though, I don't even know what move they necessarily could have made. I think it would have made a lot of sense to go and try and get a running back because clearly Tony Pollard isn't that guy to be your bell cow. If you just, can find somebody else to bring in and then I don't want to say spell Tony because he's better than that, but just taking off that bell cow, responsibility of him, I think that would have put the Cowboys in a better position.
Shally, tell me why I'm right.
I disagree with you a little bit on the Detroit one. Not so much in, as in, the defensive side of the ball. I don't disagree with that. I think DPJ makes sense for them. Because again, I think they need a solid second or third option that can be physical and help, spread the field a little bit because Jameson Williams has not been consistent. They're struggling to, find ways to get him the ball and get his confidence back. Marvin Jones stepping away from the team certainly didn't help the receiver room at all. So I think him going home, I think that makes sense. I don't think he's going to put up world beater numbers by any means, but I think he gives a little bit of relief to the other side of the field for Jared Goff. The Dallas thing is weird. I don't know how much wiggle room they would have had to really make a big splash if they could have. I think Tony Pollard, is a little bit of a mystery this year. I mean, they let Zeke go. Obviously, some of that was, financially induced for the amount of money he was going to make. But with the way Pollard played last year, I think everybody thought he was going to come in and be that 20 touch a game guy, and he hasn't succeeded. And I think Dallas's line has been a little bit, I would say, underachieving compared to what we're used to seeing from them. They're still very good. I just don't think they're the standard anymore. But that's a little bit of a mystery. He just hasn't looked right. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know if he still has lingering effects from the injury. He's not confident, in the injury, but he doesn't look like he is attacking defenses as fast with kind of reckless abandon like he was last year. So, but I'm with you. Dallas sits on their hands and doesn't get better. I'm all for that.
Well,
I'm no problem with that whatsoever.
Go out and get a cornerback. I don't know why they didn't get a cornerback to replace Trevon Diggs, who's out for the year.
Oh, see, I kind of disagree. I think they've been having actually decent cornerback play even outside of Diggs. Like
Deron Bland has been good, but he's
had a decent season. But you don't want to go out and go crazy and then have that money on the books. And I mean, Trevon Diggs, I know he's hurt, but he's going to be back next season. That's
you can get a rental, bro. You can get a rental for a fifth or sixth. There's a lot of guys going for very low. I'll tell you right now. I'm
Douglas.
Yeah. What? Why not?
I feel like Dallas probably felt like they were comfortable with what they had, at least that corner.
All right. Well, let's move into some previews for this week. We got a couple games. This is probably the best slate of preview games that we've ever had. Ever. They're incredible this week. Let's start we got to start with London, right? It's the first game of the day. Not London, sorry, Germany.
Frankfurt, Germany.
Frankfurt, Germany. The Kansas City Chiefs are playing in Germany versus the Miami Dolphins in what promises I don't know, dude, if I'm like the NFLPA in London, I'm breaking tables right now. I'm like going nuts. Wait, you gave me Jaguars versus whomever, and they're getting friggin' Chiefs Dolphins? Why is Germany? We've been in London every year. Why is Germany getting this marquee matchup of Tyreek Hill versus his former team? I think this is an incredible matchup. Dolphins versus Chiefs in Germany, 9 a.m. in the morning. Eggs and football. Kegs and eggs. Who wins the game? Who do you like, Shally? Tell me why it's going to be Kansas City.
I'll tell you why it's going to be Miami. I'm going to go with Miami on this one. I think that Kansas City defense is starting to show a little bit of wear and tear, which I think a lot of people thought they were going to. They don't have a lot of depth across the board, and they've lost big pieces the last couple of years, and it's starting to as good as their scheme is, I think teams are starting to figure out a way around it. Miami should be full strength going into that game. Ramsey's going to play again. I think Cheetah and Waddle are just going to be too much for that defense, and that's literally what it boils down to for me. I do think it's a high-scoring game. I do agree with you. I think it's going to be a crazy game to wake up to in the morning and watch first thing. I'll say England can't be that, man. I mean, did they get Buffalo Jacksonville was a very good game. That's a marquee game. But I like Miami's offense in this one a little bit. I think there's going to be a little, I think we all know how Cheetah kind of plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to have one Sunday. I think he's going to be out to, kind of make a statement and do his thing and kind of rub Kansas City's face in it. So I will go a very high-scoring affair. I'll go Miami like 33-30.
I cannot wait to tell you guys you're all wrong. Yeah, pick Miami, Cottrell. I want you to pick Miami.
I got Kansas City in this.
There we go. My God.
I think with Kansas City and the way that Patrick Mahomes struggled last week, I think it'd be a different ball game if they had found a way to beat that Denver team and then they had to go travel. But again, Kansas City is a team right now that, although they have been consistently winning outside of this Denver game, they've really been kind of struggling so far. And I think this is the opportunity for them to right that ship against one of the teams that a lot of people are talking about potentially taking their throne on top of the AFC. So I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be, cleared up from all those flu symptoms that he had and all that. And I think this is a game that Chiefs team has had pretty much circled on their calendar all season so far. So I think this is going to be probably the best game the Chiefs have played all season. And we talked about it when the Dolphins were playing the Eagles. You guys mentioned it, that the trenches were going to be an important battle. I think this is a game where you see Isaiah Pacheco have a lot of success. I think, with Patrick Mahomes opening up downfield and Travis Kelce coming across the middle, I think that's really going to open it up for Pacheco. I could see him having 80 yards and potentially 2 touchdowns in this one. So I like the Chiefs to win, and I do think it's going to be a little bit more of a shootout. But I like the Chiefs to win pretty comfy. I'd say like 34-24 or something like that.
I think that the Miami Dolphins have as many wins versus like the wins combined for all their wins of their opponents. It's like 7, right? They got 6 wins and the whole team's got 7 wins total for all the teams they've beat. Kansas City's going to beat them and they're going to beat them handily. Patch, you talk about chip on your shoulder. Tyreek Hill has one. No, he didn't. He got $30 million. They offered him a ton of money. He spoke on a podcast recently how he wanted to stay in Kansas City, and his agent played the cards wrong, and he end up being happy going to Miami. But Tyreek Hill is not going to have a chip on his shoulder. The chip on his shoulder is going to be Patrick Mahomes coming off a loss, coming off flu symptoms. I like Mahomes and the Chiefs to dominate this game in Frankfurt, Germany. I believe it. I think the Chiefs beat them. I think they beat them pretty handily. The Miami Dolphins have proven 3 things: they can score. Tyreek Hill is great, and they can't beat good teams. This is another one. I like the Chiefs in this one. I like the Chiefs to kind of embarrass them, bring them down to earth. Next game on the docket is let's go with the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Cottrell, I'll go to you first here.
So I got Baltimore winning this one. I think that Baltimore is playing some good football right now, and for them to be coming off of a bye, I think is perfect for them right now. I do think that their receiving core is very interesting right now, and obviously, their receivers have not really had great success all year outside of Zay Flowers. So I do think that Baltimore will be able to run the ball pretty effectively over that Seahawks team, and I think Geno Smith is going to continue to struggle. Like, obviously, we saw the game-winning drive last week. Didn't play great, though, against that Browns team. And the Ravens defense has been playing lights out. So I think you see Geno turn over the ball a couple times in Baltimore, and, that's ultimately going to lead to a Ravens win.
Okay, well, I'll go second here, and then we'll go to Shally. I like the Seahawks in this one. I like the Seahawks outright. I think it's a perfect setup for Seattle. With Seattle, matchups make fights in the NFL. Everyone's looking at this like the Ravens just dominated the Lions. They're this hot team. They beat the Cardinals. They're coming home. Seattle's got to travel across. Matchups make fights. This game is a perfect matchup for Seattle. Let's lay it out for you. Let's look at Seattle's defense versus Baltimore's offense. You have Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon locking up below average wide receivers at this point. You have Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr. Then what's your biggest weapon on the offensive end throwing the football to? Mark Andrews. Who's the perfect person to lock up Mark Andrews? I don't know. Jamal Adams is there, and Jamal Adams is going to lock up Mark Andrews like he does every time they play. I love Seattle in this one. I think it's a perfect match for them. The only way Seattle loses this football game if Geno gets turnover happy. I think their offensive strengths match up well against what the Baltimore Ravens don't do well. You got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. You got a 1-2 punch. You have 3 wide receivers that can stretch the field with Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I love Seattle in this one. This is my upset special of the weekend. You will hear this on my pick 'em. Give me Seattle plus 4.5, but they're going to win the game outright.
I'm going to go with Cottrell on this one. I'm going to go Baltimore at home. I don't know if they cover. I think it's a very close game. Gene brought up a lot of very good points. I've gone back and forth on this game a couple times. Baltimore is playing well. I don't think you can discount them beating Detroit last week just like that. I mean, that's
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. Detroit's a very good football team. So you can't just throw it out as a one-off thing. They look great. I do think Baltimore will be able to move the ball against the Seattle defense, though. Their mixture of running, Andrews, throwing the ball outside. The receivers are starting to look better. Are we going to get to? Are we ever getting 5 years ago OBJ? No, I don't think so. I don't think that guy exists anymore. But he's looked okay. I think Zay Flowers is everything we thought he was going to be. I mean, he's made big plays at big times for them. So I think as long as Lamar sticks to the script and doesn't struggle, I think Baltimore pulls out a close one at home. I do agree with you. I think Seattle's offense is finally starting to come alive a little bit to what we were used to seeing last year. But it's cross-country flight as well, cross-country trip. Teams in general don't always do well, when you factor all that in as well. I do think this is a 1:00 kick too. So I don't like that either. So I'm gonna go Baltimore at home in a close one. I don't think they cover though, but I think they win the game.
I'm telling you right now, I will be so shocked if Seattle doesn't win this football game. All right, let's move on to 4:00 hour. We got the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas at Philadelphia. It's Cowboys week in Philadelphia. Cottrell, tell it, being the non-Eagles fan on the show, how do you see this one go? Cowboys at Eagles.
I think under normal circumstances, this would probably be the easiest game to pick of the week. I'm still rolling with the Eagles in this one. The Jalen Hurts injury news kind of concerns me a little bit. Obviously, he's going to play, things like that, but just knowing that a lot of his success is dependent on his mobility and just how the Eagles are able to open up their playbook when he is on the move just kind of worries me a bit. Like, I think they might try to dial down some of the, design runs and things like that. But I still got the Eagles winning this football game. I think that defense at home is going to have Dak in hell. I think they're going to get after Dak, force him to get off his spot pretty quickly. And once that happens, Dak is prone to throw you 3. So I think that secondary is going to be rolling. And I think this is going to be a game that ultimately comes down to Philadelphia's defense. I think they score defensively, and I think they're just going to try and make the game as easy as possible on Jalen Hurts, knowing that he's not 100%.
Shally?
I think the Eagles win. I think they win definitively. I think it's going to boil down to, what I've been talking about all year. It's going to boil down to Dak have to come in here and have a special game to keep them in the game or have them pull it out at the end. I don't see it. He hasn't shown it to me at all this year. We've already talked about Tony Pollard struggles. The offensive line's a little bit banged up. They're missing Trayvon Diggs. I think however they're going to dispatch Gilmore, I don't know if he's going to stay on one side of the field or what he's going to do, but whoever doesn't have Gilmore on them, for any specific play out of those two studs is going to eat. Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown is going to be a huge mismatch against whoever the Cowboys put on the other side. I think DeAndre Swift could still run the ball. I think Dallas Goedert has a good day. I like the Eagles. You're going to get Byard in there, I would assume. It looks like Jalen Carter's going to play. I just like the Eagles. I think they're a better football team across the board. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to run all over the place. I think he'll take his spots when he has to. Knee is a little bit worrisome, obviously, but I'll take Jalen Hurts over Dak Prescott, and I'll just take the Eagles as a whole. They're just a better football team, and they've showed it so far this year. So I'll go Eagles by 10.
This is a tough game for me, guys. I can go with my heart and not be treasonous and pick the Eagles to win the football game. It's not what my head tells me. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have been playing with fire. I think they're trying to fight to get to the bye week. I think they're really trying to recoup, and there's a lot of injuries, a lot of people that are hobbled. This is the week before the bye, which is normally your exhale week. Cowboys game kind of helps that a little bit where they can still get up for it. I don't like this game. I don't like it one bit. Dak Prescott is 8-3 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a real stat. I think that for whatever reason, Dan Quinn's defense always gives the Philadelphia Eagles problems. I think it's going to be a very, very low-scoring game. Ugly, ugly football game. I like the Eagles to pull it out 16-15. I'm probably lying to you right now. I'm probably just saying that because I couldn't pick the Cowboys on air. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm almost certain that I'll be wrong on this one. But I'll take the Eagles in a close one. Hopefully Dak throws a pick at the end of the game or they give us the ball. I think that Dallas is doing everything they should be doing. They're being quiet. They're being very, I don't want to poke the bear. Michael Parsons selling his podcast.
What else can they do?
Michael Parsons selling his podcast. The Eagles are the best team in football. We're still going to go out there and give it our best shot. I think this is a really bad spot for Philadelphia. I really do. I think that defense dominates Philadelphia's offense this week. And I think that the Eagles lose this one, if I'm being honest. But I'll pick them to win 16-15. Final game of the night, the Damar Hamlin return game. The Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday Night Football in Cincinnati. This is a game. This is a huge game. Cincinnati's looked great coming off another win versus the San Francisco 49ers. Joe Burrow looks like we're just 3 weeks ago. We're talking about shutting down. They're done for the season, and now they're 4-3. 3 straight wins. Buffalo, in my opinion, is the most overrated team in the NFL. With the loss of Matt Milano and Tre'Davious White, that defense looks very easy to expose. The Giants had them beat. I love Cincinnati in this one. I think the Bengals are the better football team, and I will always put my faith in Joe Burrow over Josh Allen. I think they're better everywhere. I really do. I think the only place on the football field in which Buffalo is better than Cincinnati is defensive line. That's it. I'll take Cincinnati every other spot on the football field. And they're home. Give me Burrow. Give me the Bengals. Cottrell?
I'm taking Buffalo in this one. I think this is the game. You mentioned it. This is the Damar Hamlin game. I think Buffalo is going to come in very motivated, and when you get that motivation, right now I think the Bengals are the better team, but I just feel like Buffalo is going to go in and they're going to do everything in their power to try and go win that football game. And I think a key part is, something that you mentioned, that Buffalo defensive line is they're good at getting after the quarterback, and I think with Von Miller now, really getting into the groove of things and being on that defensive line, I think they're going to have a good opportunity to get after Joe Burrow. Now, I know that the Bengals O-line held up pretty well last week in San Francisco, but I think this is going to be a bit of a different animal. And I think that Buffalo is going to get after Joe and make him somewhat uncomfortable. I think this is going to be a shootout, but I think Josh Allen and company are going to come out victorious in this one. I think maybe a walk-off Tyler Bass field goal to send Bengals fans home sad. So, but I like the Bills to ultimately win this game.
Before Shally goes, don't just listen, don't just share. If you're listening on TikTok, we're 795 strong. We appreciate you. Smash that like button as much as you humanly possible. 810. That was just 15 right there. Thank you. If you're listening on Facebook, on YouTube, hit that like button. Give us a share. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Shall, who wins the Bengals Bills?
I'm going to go with the NFL guy on this one. I'm going to go with the Bengals at home. Not only do I think overall, I think they are a better football team. They're starting to play like it. You're starting to see the Bengals that we all thought we were going to get at the beginning of the year, minus, before struggles on offense, before Joe Burrow's injury. This is the Bengals team we're used to seeing. It's the Bengals offense we're used to seeing. I do agree with Gene. I think Buffalo's defense is just a little bit too banged up for me right now to take them on the road. Jamar Chase looks like the world beater, wide receiver right now. They're starting to click on all cylinders. I think it's just too much at home too. I think it was at Buffalo. I think with the circumstances surrounding, Damar Hamlin, the emotion that would be in the stadium and everything, I think would maybe turn the tide of that game a little bit. But with it being in Cincinnati, I don't think there's any way Cincinnati loses that game on their home turf. So I will go the Bengals. I'll go 34-27 Cincinnati.
Okay. Well, we got that's our previews for the week. We'll get into NFL Pick'em now, and we got some NCAA football for you. Look at this, College Cottrell after a 3. Listen, last week we swept the board, 8-0-1, no losses, 1 draw, 13-10, 13-10, 12-10. All of us above 500, picking 3 games a week on a Wednesday night. NFL action against the spread. Listen, guys, I started 1-5, 1-5. All the way back to 13-10. Cottrell's tied for the lead. Shalley's just a half game back, just a pushback. Loving it, gentlemen. Because I'm defending champion and it's tied, I will still set the order. We'll go Cottrell, Bill, Gene on the 1, 2, 3 for the NFL Pick'em.
All right, so my first pick of the day is going to be Kansas City minus 1.5 versus Miami. I already gave the full breakdown of why I thought Kansas City would win that game, and I think with them winning that game, I think it's going to be more than by 1 point. So I like them starting off your Sunday morning off hot. Second game, I like the Saints at home minus 8.5 versus Chicago Bears. Look, I know, Chicago had some luck in their quarterback's first game. I don't think that's going to be the case traveling to New Orleans and going up against that Saints defense at home. I think the Saints are going to be able to, confuse him and really just have that Chicago Bears offense pretty disoriented. So I think they cover 8.5 pretty easy. Last game I like, I'm taking the Chargers minus 3 versus the Jets on Monday Night Football. I think the Chargers are just going to be the better team here. And I know the Jets keep finding ways to win games, but Zach Wilson is not putting up any points on the board. And so, you could talk about Herbert. We talk about him at length on his show and his ability to not capitalize down the stretch. I think if that Chargers team puts up 24 points in this game, they're going to win the game rather comfy. So I like them to cover that 3-point spread.
All righty. I'm not fully against any of your picks. That's a good day.
Hey, you were against 2 of them last week, and I won 3-0. So I don't know if it's a good day.
Shally, give me your 3.
All right, I'm going to start off with the team that we spoke about at length at the beginning. I'm taking the Raiders minus 1.5 at home against the Giants. Giants stink. I think the Raiders rally around each other. I think with them starting in O'Connell, Josh McDaniels not being there, if he really was that big of a problem in the locker room and everywhere else, I think the guys come out very fired up at home, and I think they play well. So I'll take the Raiders minus 1.5 at home. Second game, Minnesota Vikings at Atlanta. Taking Atlanta minus 4.5. Taylor Heineke's show begins on Sunday. I think Minnesota's coming in a little bit demoralized for them to get back to 4-4 and 500 and lose Kirk Cousins to a torn Achilles. Still no Jay Jettas. I think they're just walking wounded in there. I think Heineke's going to protect the ball a lot better than Desmond Ridder did. I don't think there's going to be the turnovers. Atlanta always plays better at home. Give me the Falcons minus 4.5. Last but not least, I already told you where I was going with this. Eagles minus 3. Give it to me all day. I think they're the better team. I think this game being before the bye, with it being Dallas, negates a lot of the possibility for a letdown going into the bye week. I think both teams are banged up, so I think that kind of washes out. And like I said before, give me the Eagles versus Dak. He has not been good this year by any means. I think the Eagles are still not playing their best, but I think they play well enough to get it done on Sunday. So I'll take the Eagles minus 3.
I'm actually almost scared. I but how confident I am in all three of my picks this week. Like, I am super confident. I feel like I'm locked in. I feel, and you know what that means? I'm going to go 1-2. I almost feel like that, but that's okay. I'm going to give you my 3 picks. I am on fire, and I'm telling you right now, I think all 3 of them cover. I think they're too easy, right? Like, I'm scared because I think they're too easy. Give me the Houston Texans minus 2.5 at home versus Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Houston Texans and DeMeco Ryans get that team right. I think they win that football game after coming off that really bad loss to Carolina. I think it's a perfect get-right game for them. I think that defense will turn over Baker Mayfield multiple times. Give me the Texans. Second game, Pittsburgh. What did they say after that loss versus Jacksonville? Refs cost us the game. They were pissed off. I think they come out and absolutely dominate. People are all on this Will Levis hype train because he had a great game, and he did. Will Levis looked awesome. But let's not forget who Will Levis is. Will Levis' second game as an NFL pro. You're talking about a guy who turned the ball over a ton in college and a guy that couldn't beat out Sean Clifford for the starting quarterback job and for the Penn State Nittany Lions. I like Pittsburgh in this one. I think their defense turns over Tennessee multiple times. Give me the Steelers minus 2.5 at home versus the Tennessee Titans. And for my last pick, I told you this, guys, already. I love Seattle. I think they're a perfect pick this week. Give me them plus 5.5 over Baltimore. I love Seattle this week. I think they win the game outright, but why not take the 5.5? It's there. Let's take it. Let's have some fun with it. Give me Seattle over Baltimore. That's our pick 'em.
And for the record, nobody was going to beat Sean Clifford out for that starting position as long
as
Franklin was there.
It's fair. Shaw, Franklin and Clifford are their Clifford Franklin. It's like a. All right, let's get to NCAA football. And without further ado, by the way, before we get into college football, we're only going to go about 20, 25 minutes with college football. But if you want a full breakdown of college football, you have to tune in Saturday morning. Coast to Coast has been absolutely out of this world good. They have their fraud list, upset alert. What's the big X thing? I forget the name of it.
College Football Eliminator.
College Football Eliminator. Thank you. You have to tune in to Coast Saturday mornings with iBlack Elmore, College Cottrell, and Scholastic Shalley. But we will give you a breakdown. We'll give you a breakdown of the game's big matchups this week. So without further ado, let's pass it over to College Cottrell. We're going to first look at the rankings, Cottrell.
Yeah, so you got the rankings here. They got revealed for the first time last night on Halloween, and I gotta say, I was a bit surprised. You know, I know on Coast to Coast, I gave my rankings and I had Ohio State at 1. I didn't think they would actually be there, though. I thought the committee would respect Georgia in the sense of, you know, what they've done in the past and then being undefeated last year. They haven't lost a game basically in 2 years. So I thought that Georgia would hold that 1 spot. But I think that, you know, it says something that they're rating these teams based on what they've done so far this season. Now, I know we're going to give our opinions on the whole thing here. And the one glaring issue that I have, James Madison is undefeated in their, you know, division right now, and they're completely unranked. And you got teams on here where, you know, I get it. You know, you want to add the ranked teams to the end of seasons. You want the resumes to look good, things like that. It's clear, you know, what the committee's doing here. They want these teams to have those resumes moving forward. USC still being ranked. I get it. They got Caleb Williams. They got no business being here, in my opinion. And then the SEC, all the SEC love, you know, with some of these teams. I think Bama's deserving where they're at. Ole Miss, I don't know how you can justify them being at 10. But those are just like my quick reactions from the rankings.
So, Cottrell, let me ask you a question real quick. Out of the 5 undefeated conference champions right now, the people that are not conference champions, but undefeated in major conferences, who has the best win?
The best win is Washington.
Okay. Why are they not top 4?
Because Florida State beat LSU to begin the season.
I don't care.
I know. I mean, I know
that's
you don't, but I'm just saying, but that's why.
You said you like this. I hate this. Let me ask you a question real quick. Nothing against. Listen, you want to move Georgia down? That's fine. Georgia has not played great football, and I get that. And Shally, I might piss in your Cheerios right now, but I'm not trying to. What's Michigan's best win? It doesn't matter now, but what's Michigan's best win?
It's Rutgers.
Okay. Why is not Washington ahead of Michigan? If you're doing it by strength of victories and who they're playing, let's be honest with ourselves. Washington should be ranked third. I don't think that Michigan shouldn't be ranked. I think Michigan will prove their resume throughout the season. But why is Washington not top 4? You beat Oregon, who's number 6, and the committee is telling you they still think Oregon's better than Washington. I do too, and that's fine. That's what they're telling you by putting Oregon 6 and Washington 5. But Washington should be top 4. There's no doubt in my mind they should be top 4.
I think the issue that you have is that Washington, even after beating Oregon, Washington struggled in the game that they had no business struggling in. Michael Penix Jr. looked pretty pedestrian in that game, and I think that's ultimately why they're down there at 5. Now, I do think regardless, even if they would have blown out any team they would have blown, I do think they still would have had Florida State ahead of them just because of, that LSU win at the beginning of the season. The other thing with Florida State is, they have other quality wins. Like you point to that one win against Oregon. I think as a whole, Florida State at this point probably has a better resume.
I don't know if you can say that. Clemson's 4-4. That's a tough sell to me. I think what really has harmed Washington, it really wasn't one game. It's the last 2 weeks they have not looked good at all. Now, granted, you still have to judge them off. They won the football games, and you have to give them credit for that. It's a mixture of resume, and it's a mixture of what people are seeing when they watch these teams. It's Ohio State obviously was number 1 because they have 2 huge wins. You factor in the eye test for Ohio State. They're not going to pass the eye test as well as some of the people that are in the top 5 or 6, but they have it on paper. Georgia's kind of more of an eye test. Michigan's more of an eye test. Florida State's probably kind of a mixture, and so is Washington. So it's all going to sort itself out. It's only week 1, but there's definitely arguments you can make for a lot of these teams to either move up or move down. I think that was the interesting part, and that was kind of really interesting to see where the committee saw everybody in week 1. I think they had a couple very interesting narratives they kind of said. And I think Florida State's the most interesting, honestly. I think with their resume, the fact that they're not above Georgia or Michigan kind of tells you they have no room for error. I think if they lose a game, I think they're in a lot of trouble, depending on what goes on. I think that leaves the door open for, a 1-loss Ohio State team. It's very interesting for some of the things, the way these teams came out in the order they came out in.
I just think you have to set the precedent early, right? So, I'll put the issue right. If Washington runs the table, they're top 4. So why not put them 4 now? So they're playing USC this week. They beat USC. They're not going to be top 4 next week? So they're going to stick there? Because if Florida State beats the crap out of Pittsburgh, it's still going to be that top 5? All right, so then they go play at Utah.
The committee came out and said, though, that they reset their thinking every week. And so we even saw it last year, out the gate. Tennessee, it came out as obviously they lost down the road or whatever after they beat Bama. But Ohio State was ranked ahead of Georgia. Georgia ended up jumping them before the game against Ohio, a game against Michigan for us. So even though you still go undefeated, there is still criteria that you have to do and have to pass to, sustain your ranking. And so I do think if Washington beats USC, they will jump Florida State. And I think as great as that Washington win, as great as Washington's win is over Oregon, outside of that, you talk about it being a down year for Clemson. You could talk about, Riley Leonard not being there for Duke. Those 2 wins are better than any of Washington's second and third best wins.
Okay. Well, we talk about – I don't say you're wrong, but you can talk about what you want. But Florida State's got the ugliest looking win out of that top 5 when they won by 2 points over Boston College. So we could say what we want to say. They have the ugliest looking win. They have the lowest ranked top win with LSU. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not thinking Florida State should be the one that drops. Maybe you drop Michigan. Michigan's got the most room to grow, right? You put Michigan 5. If they beat Penn State, they're number 3. If they beat Ohio State, they're number 1. It doesn't matter really, but I think it's very curious how the team that has the best win in college football this year is ranked 5th.
I think another part of it too, Gene, is a point that you mentioned. You said you think Oregon is the better football team.
I do.
There's no way the committee could have put Oregon ahead of Washington. They beat them head to head already, and Washington's undefeated. So maybe that's the committee subtly saying, like, hey, if we think Oregon's better than Washington, we don't know what Florida State is. Like, we saw the Washington-Oregon game, so maybe that's why they're at 5. Like, you just never
Florida
know.
State's not going to be tested the rest of the year until the ACC championship game. They have nobody else on their schedule.
They're not going to get tested there, and that's why I said I think for as much praise as they get for that LSU win, the fact that they came in here number 4 behind the Georgia and Michigan team who haven't played anybody yet, I think is very telling. That is them saying they have no room for error whatsoever, like none. If they lose to anybody and still win the ACC, I don't think there's any chance they get in. And I think the resume, we're going to talk about a big game here in a couple minutes. That directly affects Florida State. So if that team gets a 3rd loss on the resume, that hurts Florida State. So it's going to be an interesting weekend for sure.
I'll put it to you. The next 3 weeks, Washington has 3 ranked opponents. If they win those 3 weeks, they should be number 1.
I don't know about all that, but
that's not going to happen.
They're going to have 5 ranked wins.
But that's also assuming that everybody else in the
they're not going to win 3. They're not going to win all 3
bad.
games, by the way. Just I'm saying that out loud. I just think that obviously you have time to bring down the resume. I just think it's unfair to not have them in the top 4. That was my biggest gripe with the rankings. I love Ohio State being 1. I love that. And not because I like Ohio State. I hate Ohio State. But I love them being 1 because they had the balls to schedule at Notre Dame. Good for them. I'm happy about that. Make more teams do shit like that. I love that. Reward that. Georgia has Cupcake City. They won 2 straight national championships, and they have Cupcake City, and they haven't looked great versus a lot of those teams. I will say this, though. They look like Georgia this week, even without Brock Bowers.
That they did.
I got to give credit where credit's due. That team showed up. Any initial thoughts on the ranking, Shally? What do you think? Like me and Cottrell gave ours. I would love to hear your opinion.
I don't love the inconsistency with what they did with head to head. That bothers me a little bit. Obviously, Washington, Oregon, you really couldn't do anything because Washington is undefeated. But they factored in Texas head to head over Alabama. Especially with the fact Texas is going to play the backup quarterback for the next 3 weeks. But then kind of just shit on Oklahoma. I don't agree with that. I don't think Ole Miss should be overhead of Penn State. Sorry.
Oh, I agree 100%. I didn't want to sound homerish. I agree 100%.
Homerish.
No, that's why I said it right away.
Yeah, you put them on a neutral field. Penn State's going to win that football game.
Well, Penn State's only loss is on the road, 8 points. Now, granted, it was more than 8 points. Like Penn State scored like 57 seconds left, but it was 8 points on the road at number 1. It's their only loss. Now, granted, they haven't looked great in a couple weeks. Let's be clear, but their only loss is at number 1 by 8 points.
Yeah, I mean, and Ole Miss lost at number 8, and they haven't looked anywhere near as dominating as Penn State. So it's the SEC bias. It is what it is. Like I said, a lot of this is going to work itself out. So it's early. It's fun to do every week. So I wholeheartedly believe, depending on what happens this weekend, I don't think the top 5 are in the same order next week. I think there'll be movement one way or the other.
Well, yeah, there has to be with USC Washington. Let's get into the games.
I think just real quick, just last thing that I'll throw in. I think it's real interesting that, no one had really been talking about Missouri, and then they come up here at number 12. I know they only got 1 loss. Thought that was real interesting that they came in at number 12.
They came in at number 12 just so they can build Georgia's resume.
Correct.
Don't lie. That's what it's for.
I know.
100%.
That's all. The only reason they're 12. I laughed at that. Like Louisville should 100% be ahead of Missouri. Like Louisville has 2. Like granted, Duke was hobbled. I understand that. They also beat Notre Dame. Louisville 100% should be ahead of Missouri. What are we talking about right now?
And just like Bill said, LSU beat Missouri head to head. So
It's crazy. I mean, Oklahoma State has no business being ranked. They're ranked there for one reason because they play Oklahoma this week.
Yep.
They got annihilated on their home field by somebody horrible. I can't remember who it was. And they got embarrassed. They have no business being ranked. I guess you can rank Kansas, but I mean, 24 and 25, I'm fine with because they're the non-Power 5 teams. They have to rank them. I agree with Cottrell. Give me James Madison before anybody ranked 20th through 23rd. They should be in the top 25 somewhere. USC has no business being on this list. They've gotten embarrassed 2 weeks in a row. If you're going to rank them, and you could sit here and make a justification, you could rank North Carolina. They've had the same exact last 2 weeks. It's the money talks here, and that's what it's going to be. There's stuff on here to help Georgia. Michigan doesn't matter this week. Ohio State doesn't matter this week, and then we'll see what happens with Florida State and Washington. But
let's break down the games. Cottrell, why don't you start us off? What game are we starting with first?
So let's make the first game this week. I mean, the game that I feel like I know where everybody's going. Let's go, Missouri traveling to Georgia.
Shouldn't be a game. I'll tell you right now. I know Kirby Smart's message to the team. I know what it is. This is the team that had you on the ropes last year. They're number 12 in the country. They're this, and that. You're number 2 on the rankings, and you're back-to-back. They're disrespecting you, and I'm telling you right now, Georgia's going to come out and pound them. Like water is wet, the sky is blue, and Georgia is going to pound Missouri this week.
Oh man, you could have rhymed it. You could have just ended it with Mizzou. You could have rhymed it, but
you're right.
I agree with you. I thought the funniest thing was when they were doing the rankings last night. It was either Herbstreit or Galloway, or somebody was like, Kirby Smart's doing backflips right now. With them getting knocked down to 2, and it's true. I think this is a game for a quarter, and then I think the wheels fall off. Missouri is not the 12th best team in the country. Georgia is a different animal in Athens. This isn't in Missouri like it was last year. Everything all factored together, pretty much what Gene said. I like Georgia to roll here.
So, I mean, I definitely agree with you guys. Like, I think Georgia is going to be the team that comes out victorious. I definitely think they roll. But, Bill, you said something, though, that I think is going to be spot on. I think you're going to have people looking at this game and seeing, that first quarter, maybe even the first half. And I think Mizzou is going to have Georgia on the ropes. They're coming off of a bye. Brady Cook's been playing well. Luther Burden's been playing well. Like, I think they're going to come out with a great game plan, but as soon as they get off script, whenever, mark the 15 to 20 play mark offensively, whenever that's out and Kirby Smart gets to go into halftime and make those adjustments, I think Georgia absolutely rolls in this one. I think this is a game where, if Mizzou scores 14 in the first half, they won't score another point the rest of the game. Like, I think this is going to be one of those 31-14 caliber games where maybe at halftime Mizzou's up 14-10 or something like that. But at the end, I think it gets ugly for Mizzou, and I think this is a 3-possession win for that Georgia Bulldog team.
I agree. Next one on the docket.
So the next one we got, let's go Washington traveling to USC.
This is a really funny game because I don't know whether USC is kind of quitting right on the season when they lost, because it looked like it last week and then they came back and won the football game, or if they're really just not getting up for the games because they realize that their national title chances are gone. But I will say this. I know they're going to get up for this game. Home game versus Washington. It'll be a showcase game for Caleb Williams to solidify himself as the number 1 pick in the draft. I think this game's way closer than it should be. Washington hasn't looked great. USC definitely hasn't looked great. I'm going to go with Washington, but very hesitant. I don't know if I could trust him, but I will say this. Michael Penix Jr. to Rome is as good as gold this week.
I'm going Washington as well. I think it's a closer game. It's going to be the same narrative I talked about for the last couple of weeks. I think Caleb usually does his thing. I think the offense will put up points. They'll be at home. I think that defense is just trash. I don't think they get enough criticism for being as bad as they are. I think we look at Colorado and teams like that and come down on them, or the reason they're losing games. The same exact reason why USC's lost twice. Their defense can stop nobody. I think it's a great game to come out of a bye for Washington and look great and kind of get back on track and get the offense rolling again. I think Michael Penix goes into Southern Cal and does work, and I think Washington comes out with a win. And then I think you really you kind of are on Caleb Williams' watch at that point. That'll be their third loss. They can't win the Pac-12. College football playoff is already done. I think you start getting the rumors of him shutting it down at that point.
So I think for the last 3 weeks, and granted, Oregon was a great opponent for Washington. I think the last 3 weeks, Washington has put themselves in a position to lose all 3 of those football games. Last week, had no business being in a tight battle with Stanford. Now, they weren't ever in true danger of losing that one, but letting Stanford score 33 points on that Washington team is absolutely insane. And I say it, I've said it earlier this season with other teams, and I'll say it here with Washington. I think the Washington Huskies team is asking to get beat. And, I ultimately picked Kansas last week, so I thought Oklahoma had been asking to get beat. And when you go up against a team that's ready to beat you, you're going to get beat. And so I'm taking USC this week. I think this is a game that USC is going to for sure get up for. And I know they have 2 losses, and so their college football playoff hopes are absolutely dead. It's not dead for them to go to the Pac-12 championship. They have Washington in front of them now. They're going to see Oregon later on in this season. They still control their own destiny to even potentially have a glimmer of hope being a 2-loss Pac-12 champion. So I think this is a game Caleb Williams gets up for. And I think this is going to be one of those high-scoring games, and I think this is going to be worth the price of admission. So I got USC winning this one, maybe like a 41-37. Caleb Williams leading the drive to ultimately put USC ahead late in the game.
Interesting. It's interesting. We'll see. I'm most interested to watch how that game plays out, because I think that game can be a close USC win or a Washington blowout. I think it could be a Washington blowout, though.
I think it could be a Washington. I definitely think it could be a Washington blowout, but I'm leaning USC win clearly. So,
okay.
Last game we got, probably the most important game in terms of figuring out where everything's going to fall at the end of the season. Bama versus LSU.
I hate that this is an important game. I do. I do, because Bama got stomped at home by Texas. LSU got stomped by Florida State. And we're talking about these guys in the college football playoff.
Well, LSU's done. They don't have a shot.
They have 2 losses,
the playoff. But it's important because if Bama loses this game, that means that they're shot.
Well, this is also for the West, is it not?
Basically is, yeah.
Yeah.
I like LSU to win the game. I think Bama's not Bama. I think LSU is better offensively. I think Bama's slightly better defensively. Give me Bama. Give me LSU in this one. I don't care where the game's being played at.
This is a tough one. I think LSU has the best, scoring offense in the country. Alabama's defense is starting to look like an Alabama defense. LSU's defense has been atrocious all year. It's one of the reasons they have 2 losses. And Alabama is, for lack of a better term, improving on offense. It's at home. It's in Tuscaloosa. I've just been pulled too many ways with this game. I look at Jaden Daniels and what he's done, and I think he should be able to go in there and move the ball against Alabama. But I don't know if LSU is capable of stopping Alabama because their defense is terrible. I have no faith that Brian Kelly is going to go into that stadium and out-coach Nick Saban. I know for damn sure that's not going to happen. Give me Alabama. And I don't even know why I'm taking it, but I'll go Alabama in a tight one.
I like it.
I got LSU in this one. I'm rolling with the Tigers. I think you saw in the game against Texas the way to beat that Alabama team. You be aggressive, you take your shots downfield, and you make their corners, play tight on your receivers. And I think this is going to be a game where, Jaden Daniels, I think he potentially overtakes Michael Penix Jr. in terms of the Heisman race. I think you're going to have Jane Daniels down there in Tuscaloosa, and I think he's going to have the ability to potentially put up big numbers in that game. Now, I will say the Bama defensive line is definitely starting to come alive, as compared to where they were at the beginning of the season. But I still think that LSU offense is just so explosive that they're going to be able to get big plays. And on the other side of the ball, I keep saying it: if you could find a way to not give up the 30-plus yard chunk plays against that Bama team, they are going to struggle to move the ball. So I think LSU is going to be in a spot where they can get after Milroe, try to limit that big play. And if they do that, they're going to win the football game, pretty handily. So I got LSU taking care of business down there in Tuscaloosa.
All righty, let's get into college football pick'em. And as a reminder, guys, if you need more college football action, Coast to Coast Saturday morning is it. Now, you won't be getting super dog points like NFL Genius here. You won't be. But you will be getting College Kittrell and Scholastic Shalley with Black Elmore. Let's get into pick'em. What order, Kittrell? You're the boss.
So we'll go reverse order from NFL. I'll end up going last this time. Gene, you can go first, and then we'll stick Bill in the middle.
Bill's always in the middle. It's all right. He's the rose in between two thorns.
I'm the creamy filling.
Damn. Whoa, slow down. Pause. Oregon minus 24.5 over Cal. Oregon's playing at home. They're trying to staple and build that resume. I think they run it up on Cal at home. I think Oregon's the better football team by 1 million. I think they destroy Cal this week. I think they win the game by 40 points. I love this game. This is a typical letdown game. Who was the biggest win last week? It was Kansas over Oklahoma. Well, I got news for you. Iowa State minus 2.5 is the pick this week, gentlemen. Iowa State over Kansas. Letdown game for Kansas after winning that game versus Oklahoma. And then for my last one, I got Washington State minus 13.5 versus Stanford. I don't think Washington State's really got it back together. I just think Stanford stinks. So I'll take Washington State minus 13.5 to beat Stanford. And for my super dog, call it hate, call it whatever you want to call it. Give me Pitt plus 21.5 at home versus Florida State. You watched that Florida State team did up in Boston College. They're coming up to Pitt. It's going to be muggy. It's going to be rainy. And Florida State doesn't want to have to deal with any of that. I think Pitt keeps that game close and picks me up a lot of super dog points. Don't be surprised if that's a game in the fourth quarter. I'll take Pitt plus 21.5.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Ernduzi's got an interesting situation going on right now. So I'll be curious to see how that team responds this week after last week, because some of his players felt like that, he called them out in the media afterwards. So I'm going to start in South Carolina. I'm going Notre Dame minus 3 at Clemson. I think Clemson's done. I think they've packed it in. You got Dabo Swinney on talk shows arguing with 18-year-old kids about taking his job. That team is just a mess. We thought they kind of readied the ship after the beginning of the year, and they haven't. So 4-4, Notre Dame coming off a bye. I think they go into Clemson and just run the ball. Run the ball, take care of business, that defense. I like Notre Dame. Second game, we already talked about. I'll be brief. Washington minus 3 at USC. I have no confidence whatsoever in USC's defense to stop anybody. I think Penix Jr. gets right. I think him and the wide receivers go to town. I like Washington big. Third game, team that's got to respond. I like that after you're coming off a loss. I'm taking Oklahoma minus 5.5 at Oklahoma State. I mentioned it when we were doing rankings. Oklahoma State has no business being ranked. They lost by 21 on their home field to Cincinnati. They're not that good. Oklahoma's kind of fighting for their life now to some degree, especially after the rankings came out. They have to hold serve to get back to the Big 12 championship game and get another shot at Texas. So I like Oklahoma minus 5.5 on the road. And Superdog, I'm going to go with Service Academy versus Service Academy. Army plus 18.5 at Air Force. Air Force is very good. They play a very similar game. Army's shown, spells this year where they can stop people and stay in games. 18.5 seems like a lot for two teams that just want to run the ball 72 times a game. So I will go Army plus 18.5.
So interesting enough, I'll start where me and Bill agree. I'm going to start with Notre Dame. I got Notre Dame -3 at Clemson as well. I 100% believe that Clemson has packed it in for the year. Dabo is lost his mind clearly. Bill already alluded to what he did on the radio station. And so I just think that Clemson team is very unfocused. They have no identity right now. And I think Notre Dame is in a spot where they're just going to try and win as many games as possible and potentially try to sneak into a New Year's Six bowl game. Second game I like. Second time I've done this all year. I'm going with the hometown, the Buckeyes here. I like Ohio State to cover 18.5 versus Rutgers. I don't believe that Rutgers team is as good as some people, think that they are. And I think Ohio State's going to be able to put up points, against that team. Getting healthier in the right spots, especially offensively. So I think they're going to be able to put up points. And I don't see Rutgers scoring more than 10 against that Ohio State defense. So I like them to cover that 18.5. Last game I like James Madison. I like JMU to cover -5.5 against Georgia Southern. I think that's a team that feels very disrespected. They felt a little bit of love being in the top 25 in the AP poll, and then they had to go out and watch that college football playoff, special and see that they weren't ranked at all. So I think they're going to take that personal, and I think they're going to try and put it on Georgia Southern. And so ultimately, I think that they cover that 5.5 rather easily. Last pick I got for Superdog, again, agreeing with Bill here. I like Army plus 18.5 versus Air Force. I think this game really tells you everything you need to know with the over-under being anticipated at 31.5. And so if it's going to be one of those ugly, low-scoring, just slow, run-amok kind of games, I think that's going to be in Army's favor to keep that game close. So I think they cover the 18.5 there.
I want to put somebody on upset alert this week real quick. And it's not a pick. Can't pick against them. Penn State's on upset alert. Maryland lost 3 straight games, and they're coming home. You got Baby Tua, Talia Tagovailoa. They're playing at home this week, and I think Penn State's got to worry about that trap. They got to worry about that trap they're running into where they have Michigan next week. I think that's one of those things where you just can't get caught overlooking Maryland at home. I think that game's a lot closer than it should be, and I think that spread tells you what you're looking at. It's 8.5-point spread. I like Maryland to cover that spread. I think it's a very close game. Just an upset alert for Penn State.
Okay.
I just think that you can get caught looking ahead. You've seen this in the NFL. If the NFL players can do it, I'm sure college players can do it, right? We've seen that multiple times, the game before a big game.
Well, they know they got to fight for their life next week because that is win or go home.
To Gene's point, if they lose this week, next week doesn't matter. So
correct.
Also true.
So we got a lot. We got a lot going on. Guys, before we get into MLB World Series breakdown, and you got to be kidding me, we talked about the NBA a little bit with the James Harden trade. I just want your opening thoughts, first week of the season, what your thoughts, anybody standing out to you on the good or on the bad, how much, you guys might not even have took that much basketball in. I'm an absolute psychopath. The TV's always on and I'm always watching something. I will say this. I feel very confident about my $500 bet that I placed on the Boston Celtics to win the NBA Finals. I think they're still undefeated. I think they win the NBA Finals. I think they run away with it. I do not think they face an elimination game. I've been on record saying that. I don't think Boston faces one elimination game in this playoffs. The most they'll go is 6 at best. But I'm going to give you a team that I absolutely love 3-4 games into the NBA season. I love them. I do. Now that they're coming off a loss. What'd you say?
I said, I hope you don't say my team here.
They're coming off a loss. They just lost their first game, but I love the Indiana Pacers, man. The Indiana Pacers, just the depth on that team. I think Obi Toppin's in a good spot over there. Bruce Brown was a great addition. He knows how to win. Miles Turner does what Miles Turner does with Halliburton. My guy, Benedict Mathurin. I like that team. I think they're going to make some real noise in the NBA this year, and they just look good. So I really like that team as a whole. So they're my surprise team, and then a surprise team that's looked terrible. I don't think it's a surprise that they look terrible. I just think it's a surprise of how terrible they look. That's the Memphis Grizzlies. They're 0-4 on the season right now, and as a whole, they look lost out there. I know there's no Ja Morant, but ever since that series versus the Lakers, that offense just doesn't seem to be getting going anywhere. The three-point shooting has been terrible. When you got Marcus Smart as your best three-point shooter, that's a problem. Yeah, so they're the things to look out for one way or the other. I just wanted to kind of bring those up and see if you guys have anything that you'd want to add to the fire.
One team that I definitely like so far, early on in the season, at least watching, Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, I know you guys both had, their coach ultimately winning Coach of the Year, and then, me and Gene had Chet winning Rookie of the Year. They have looked really good earlier on in the year, and Chet has been, he's looked the part so far. Now, I will say against the game against Denver, he definitely, got humbled by Joker there, no doubt about that. But that happens to even the best centers in the league. So I love what I'm seeing from that Oklahoma City Thunder team, and I think that they could be a team that potentially is one of those, try hard regular season teams that goes off and gets 50 wins this year and ends up being like your Sacramento Kings team from last year, where they're seeded way higher than where they actually should be.
Got to watch out for Chet Holmgren winning Defensive Player of the Year, having 7 block performances versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
That game was a game. I can't believe the Cavs lost that game. Up 10 with 3 minutes to go.
Spider was going off too.
Absolutely
like 45 in that game.
Yeah, and they folded and just let it slip through their hands.
What Chally, anything that you've caught in? I know you were away tournament ball. I know you probably didn't catch too much NBA.
I haven't watched a ton, if I'm being honest. I've tried to watch the Sixers as much as possible. I really haven't been able to catch anything, West Coast or anything yet, obviously with not being home. So I am curious to watch OKC play with what they have going on. And then I do think it's interesting. I don't say it's interesting, but it's not too surprising that Milwaukee's struggling, getting used to kind of, everybody playing together. They're getting killed again tonight. I just saw, so it's, I think it's I don't know what the right word is. I think this year's gonna be a very interesting year. So I think a lot of teams with having younger players coming back or just starting, I think there's a lot of teams from last year that are going to improve a lot this year. And I think the depth, you're really starting to see more depth and parity in the league. I think it's starting to look like the NFL, which is what the NBA wants. So, I would say they're well on their way to that.
I'll tell you what, the one person that I called out to be the most improved player of the year this year is looking like he's going to be an absolute superstar. Cade Cunningham, the first 4 games of the season, and then tonight, has looked incredible. You guys watch out. I know it's not a household name for a lot of people that are not big basketball fans, but Cade Cunningham looks every bit as advertised. So watch out for Cade Cunningham. Watch out for Detroit. I think they're going to win again tonight. They're playing Portland. But I love the way Cade Cunningham's looked the first 5 games this season.
Gene, the one thing that I will say about your futures bet, I agree talent-wise. I think they can do it. I think there's one guy who could potentially get in their way. That's Joe Mazzulla. I just don't trust him to, if he gets in a coaching war, even if it's like a first-round matchup with like Philadelphia, like I could see Nick Nurse potentially just out coaching him and making that a series, even though, Boston is the more talented team. Like when I don't know, Joe, I'm off the Joe Mazzulla. They should have made a change. And I think they'd be in business.
All right, let's talk about a little World Series action. It's been very tough for me to talk about this. As you know, last week I threw a fit. Texas is 1 game away from winning the World Series. They're up 3-1. Once again, Noah Dallas Garcia tonight. He is out. He got hurt with an oblique injury. It looked like Max Scherzer re-injured himself last game. I don't know if Texas will need him again, but Texas is up 3-1. They had an offensive explosion, but it looked like those pesky Diamondbacks were getting back into the game last night. A lot of people turned it off, and it was 11-1. And I had it on in the background. I'm not going to lie to you. I had it on in the background. I wasn't really keeping up too much attention. But once again, Gabby Moreno, Goriel, both those guys had big hits late in the game, and it was 11-7. Texas was never in real jeopardy of losing the game. But tonight, Arizona's got Zach Allen going at home, Mr. Mouth himself. We'll see how he fares tonight versus that Texas line, missing Adalis. But I will say this, Corey Seager has been out of this world. Guy's on another planet. Your thoughts on the Rangers, Diamondbacks, as they closed out tonight in Arizona? Do they go back and close out in Game 6 in Texas? Or does Arizona do what they did to the Philadelphia Phillies and absolutely break hearts? What are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting. I think the longer it goes, the more you feel the effects of not having Garcia. I mean, he's done for the series. They already ruled Max Scherzer out as well. So I don't know if he would have pitched again anyway, but he's not an option now. So I said Corey Seager was going to win, World Series MVP. That's pretty. As long as the Rangers win, that's pretty much a lock at this point. I think Texas's approach to Arizona has been a little bit different than ours. Corey Seager's obviously had the big hits and the home runs, but the rest of those guys are, they're doing what matters in playoff baseball. They're getting people on base and they're moving people around, and you're constantly scoring runs. It puts a lot of pressure on the other team, and Texas has stayed consistent with that. And you have to give them credit. They're doing what they want to do. I think they're just a better version of what Arizona wants to do. I know it's 0-0 right now. You'd hope Gallen would win at home. I mean, he's been pretty awful the last 2 rounds, but if you get back to Texas, then who knows? You can take a day off and go to Texas to try to win 2 games. But I think Texas closes it out. I'll say Game 6. Won't be surprised if they win tonight, but I think they do it at home.
I got Texas winning tonight. I think the big thing for Texas and the way that they will win tonight is, getting Eovaldi to go as late as possible. And with it being 3-3 right now, I think if you get 5 quality innings out of Eovaldi, then he's done, more than his job. That gets into that Rangers bullpen, and they're going to be able to throw, their top 3 guys out there and try to hold serve. Now, I will say with that Rangers team, I have been surprised. I know their bats have been hot, but I was surprised to see them come out and put up 11 runs right after, Garcia got ruled out for the series.
It was a statement, bro.
Was not expecting that to be the case at all. And I thought, if anything, like that, just kind of shock factor of it could have been something that turned the series, and give Arizona that momentum. The other thing, too, is that Texas has not lost any road games at all so far throughout these playoffs at this point. So I think they're ultimately trying to end it as quick as possible. As great as it would be to go back to Texas, winning in front of their fans, I think they're going to take care of business tonight, and we're going to see Texas win their first World Series ever.
Well, Zach Allen does have his A game in tonight. 9 up, 9 down. He's perfect for 3. But we'll see. Second time through the order, third time through the order. We'll see what ends up happening. I think that I think it's just interesting to see how watching this series. It's like reopening a wound, like a cut that I'm telling you right now, there's very few games or series that have ever affected me the way that series did. Physically ill. Charlie, I don't mean to bring this up, but I kind of want to ask if we had a multiple choice question, or I shouldn't even probably do this, but if I gave you an option of 4 Philadelphia Phillies failures, right? You got 2009 versus the Yankees in the World Series. You got 1993 Joe Carter World Series. I'll tell you right now, the one that hurt me a ton was the 102 win team that lost in the wild card round that got shut out when Ryan Howard tore his Achilles going to first base. And then the series that just happened in 2023. And then last year's Astros, you can throw them in it too. I just never expected to beat the Astros, if I'm being honest. What loss affected you the most?
I'm going to chuck out 09 because we just won it in 08. So, I mean, I think, as sucky as it was to have, dreams of winning back-to-back in your head, I thought that series was evenly matched. That Yankees team was a good team. So, I don't – that one just didn't hurt as bad. And, again, a lot of it has to do with because we won the year before. The Carter one is tough because I was so young, and that was kind of like, they won the World Series the year I was born, and then they really kind of weren't close for a long time.
Yeah.
And then to lose it in that fashion, I remember I cried after that game.
I did too.
That one was tough, and that one was tough because I think that team was so unique, as in the group of guys that, if there's ever been a team that's embodied the city of Philadelphia, it might have been the 93 Phillies. They were a bunch of just crazy people. I don't know how else to say it, but this city loved that team so much. So I think losing it on a walk-off home run is really tough. I agree with you as much as, I wanted them to beat the Astros last year. I mean, the Astros were a really good team. This year, I don't know how much this one just hasn't really sunk in yet. I'm kind of still numb to it. And what was the other option?
The 5-game series they lost to the Cardinals with the 102 win season. That was hurtful, bro. They got shut out. Ryan Howard tore his Achilles. It was just like, you watched the end of the story, right? Like, it was like Cody Rhodes. Like, we finished the story. It was over.
And I think that's why that one hurts a little bit, because you kind of knew like what was coming in that off season. But it's hard for me to say anything was worse than the Blue Jays one.
It's fair. Tom Gallo agrees. He said 93 was the worst, but that Blue Jay team was stacked. I don't know, man. I watched replays of that game as an adult because I didn't understand what I was watching when I was 8, right?
I
don't know how they kept throwing Mitch Williams out there. He was so wild. It was like watching Kimbrel. Like, I almost felt like I was watching Kimbrel.
But he was effectively wild, and he was more unorthodox than Kimbrel. And there's something to be said when you're that wild. It is really hard for guys to get in there and get comfortable and think they're going to put a really good swing on a ball. There's the mentality part of it.
He threw a 99-mile heater right down the middle of the plate, and the next one would hit the backstop. Like, it was just insanity. Like, I give Dutch Dalton all the credit in the world, man. He was like JT was this year, blocking, stopping balls. It was incredible. But let's get into You Gotta Be Kidding Me. I just kind of want to relive my nightmare, my tragedy. Let's get into You Gotta Be Kidding Me. Gatrell, what's your You Gotta Be Kidding Me this week?
So mine this week, kind of bit of a fun one. We hinted on it a little bit earlier with Dabo Sweeney, and I want to dive more into it. So he has a radio show where he allows callers to call in and have conversations with him. So a guy called in, Tyler, my man Tyler called in and basically asked him to, defend his actions and defend his game plan for the NC State game. And he also mentioned that, Dabo was one of the highest paid coaches in the country. And then that was the performance they had against, 4-win NC State. And so Dabo Sweeney apparently took that to heart. And he said, quote, "You're part of the problem. The appreciation, the expectation is greater than the appreciation. That's the problem. We've won 10 plus win seasons in a row. That's happened 3 times in 150 years. Clemson ain't sniffed a national championship for 35 years. We've won 2 in the last 7, and there's only 2 other teams that can say that, Georgia and Alabama. Listen, man, you can have your opinion all you want, and you can apply for the job, and good luck to you. So, Dabo Swinney, what are you talking about here? No one has ever said, in the history of college football, you're this awful coach. We're talking about right now. Clemson hasn't made the college football playoff 3 years in a row. They're not going to make it this year. They're not going to make a New Year's Six bowl game. And people are criticizing you now because you're not recruiting as well as you did. You've been anti-NIL and all this stuff, and you're not hitting the transfer portal. And college football is literally passing you by the wayside. So, Dabo, unless you're going to make improvements on your end, you can't be mad at the caller for being upset that Clemson isn't even close to where they were at 3 years ago. And I get it. The lay of the landscape has definitely changed. And, teams are getting a lot better because of this transfer portal. But if Dabo Swinney's not going to hit the portal and he's not going to recruit as hard as what he did before, Clemson will not be any better anytime soon. And so for Dabo Swinney to not realize that and just take this to heart for this week for me, Dabo Swinney being soft to my man Tyler.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
I mean, it's spot on. You're spot on, brother. Charlie.
We have to change something up here. I don't like me and Cottrell have to flip flop going first on this show, on this segment. Because this is legit like the 6th or 7th time my man stole my "you got to be kidding me."
But he comes prepared. He's got a backup plan. Go ahead, Shally.
I don't. I was literally sitting here trying to think of like what else pissed me off this week real quick, and I have nothing whatsoever.
Derek Lewis. I thought that's where you were going to go because you were always taking the speeding, crazy.
What Derek Lewis do?
He just got arrested for going like 134 and a 50.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't either. That didn't even come across my desk. So, I would have used that. You're professional athletes. You guys are idiots. You're not race car drivers. I've said it before. Just because you see it on TV doesn't mean you can do it in your little street car. It is totally different things. Stop speeding. I don't like. I'll tell you this. You know what? I'm not even gonna say it. Never mind. I'm gonna leave it go. I don't want any controversy.
Good job. I'm proud.
I'm just gonna let it go. It was gonna be somewhat funny and somewhat true at the same time, but it's in poor taste, so I'm gonna let it go.
Excuse me, 136 in a 50. I shorted him 2 miles per hour.
Hey, that's arrested, and that's like automatic loss of license. Now he's going to have to pay somebody to drive him around all the time.
Well, mine is the Arizona Diamondbacks and Texas Rangers fan base. Listen, everyone knew this was not going to be a high-viewed World Series. Everyone knew that, right? Texas versus Arizona doesn't really, but you got to do better than this. The fear of this year's World Series between the Rangers and Arizona Diamondbacks becoming the least viewed fall classic in TV history is becoming a reality. Games 2 and 3 are the least watched on record, according to Nielsen. Monday's 3-1 victory by the Rangers averaged 8.13 million on Fox, according to fast national figures. Saturday's 9-1 win by the Diamondbacks averaged 8.15. Before this year, the least watched World Series game in history was Game 3 of the World Series in 2020 with the Dodgers Rays, which was 8.34 million. This series is averaging out to be the least watched World Series ever. In comparison, last year's World Series that had the Houston Astros beat the Philadelphia Phillies averaged a 6-game average of 11.76 million viewers per game. Talk about fan bases that don't deserve their teams to win World Series. For that, this week, the Diamondbacks and the Rangers fan base.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
The only problem with that is...
I got to address Godfrey's comment. He said, so should small market teams not play? Texas is not a small market team. Texas is not a small market team.
They're not a big market team either, though.
Arizona's a small market team,
Mm-hmm.
but Texas is not a small market team.
They're in the middle.
Okay. Middle.
Here's my point, though. My point is those ratings, like all their fans are watching it. The problem with it is there's no casual.
We don't give a shit.
Correct. There's no casual Major League Baseball fans watching that series. Like if it was the Phillies versus the Dodgers, like you're gonna have a ton of people, casual baseball fans, from both coasts to watch that series. You're not gonna get that with Texas, Arizona. It's not that their fan bases per se are watching it. What?
Let me complain and bitch about it because my Phillies aren't playing. I understand the logic in what you're saying. I don't need to have logic in this. I am taking shots at fan bases because my team isn't playing. It hurts me dearly.
And it's Dallas week.
Exactly. So let me take my shots, dude. Let me take my shots. Any final comments, gentlemen?
The one that I have, I know. My mom doesn't listen. Well, she listens to the show all the time. Doesn't comment. Doesn't do sports. She always asks me about the show, what's going on, stuff like that. Today is her birthday, so know she's watching. So wish her happy birthday, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Happy birthday, Mama Cottrell.
Mama Cottrell, happy birthday.
Callie, any final comments?
I got nothing.
Oh, perfect. Well, we are on time. We are finished. We are fine. Thank you for tuning in to Wire2Wire Sports Podcast, episode 160. If you are watching on TikTok, we just hit that 2,000 like. I appreciate that, y'all. 2,000 likes on TikTok. We had over 20 listeners live on Facebook. We were doing well tonight all across the platforms. We appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm the NFL Genius, Gene Walzak. That's College Cottrell, and we're rocking with Scholastic Shally, a.k.a. Doc. We are out of here.